Hey guys, welcome back to the Joe Silverback Show. And as I told you before, I went on a trip and I just came back from a wonderful 2 weeks of hiking, camping, kayaking, rivers in Oregon. And as those of you who know me pretty well, nature is my God and nature is my greatest source of solitude and energy, reinvigoration, rejuvenation. It's of course the place where I think that we connect with our primal silverback personalities and genetic history. Today we're going to talk about power, and we're going to talk about discipline, and we're going to talk about the study of great men, because they all go hand in hand. I was talking with a group of young guys, 19 to 24, and as I've mentioned before, and I'll continue to mention this because it's a huge issue as we are unraveling and unzipping and unwinding and trying to deal with 5 decades of confusion and uncertainty based on the misunderstandings of feminism and what feminism has done to destroy the mental and moral strength of masculinity. So I looked up, the definition of power, because I want to go over it, because it's a very simple word that for some reason in our culture has it almost always a negative connotation to it. But power is the ability to act or produce an effect. What is power? The ability to act or produce an effect. And if you don't have any ability to act or produce an effect, you are powerless. So that's very generic. Legal or official authority, capacity, or right. I was just downtown on the 24th floor of a law firm in their office, in their suite, and let me tell you, you walk in there and you feel power. You feel the boundaries of which power is very much contained. And at $425 an hour, let me tell you, anybody who's got the ability to command that rate holds a lot of power over me and over you and over the rest of us. Second part of definition of power is the possession of control, authority, or influence over others. Parents, guardians, teachers, employers. This is very crucial to the Silverback consciousness program and to the simplicity of the Silverback, and it should be part and parcel of everyone's ammunition, just as a human being, a man or woman going into childbearing, child rearing, is that you are the one who has the control and the authority and the influence over the infant. And that will exist until you relinquish that control. Let me say it again. You are the one who have the power, the authority, and the control and influence over the infant as that infant grows up into maturity. And you will have that until you relinquish that control. Part of relinquishing that control is when that individual has enough of his or her own inertia towards power, influence, authority, and control that he or she can leave you and make it on his or her own. So one of the things that I've always told my children is, hey, these are my rules. When you no longer need to depend on me, when you no longer need to, use my credit card, sleep on my bed, eat my food, use my car, you can go and set your own rules and boundaries. That's pretty much the way it is. The third definition of power is physical might, mental or moral efficacy, political control or influence. Physical might, again, we go to the Silverback. Silverback's boss dudes, and the Silverback image and model is the image and model mentally, and physically. Okay? You can't stand up and power pound your chest if you're a physical wimp. You can be slender, you can be lean, and you can be really fierce and ferocious and pound the drum inside you just as ferociously as the big dude. And David and Goliath is a good example of fearlessness and ferociousness and courage to stand up against somebody who's greater in physical ability. The study of great men. So in this group, guys are asking me a lot of questions, and I got to always remember, and I got to go back to when I was their age, and I intentionally was part of a group where we were together every single day, physically working out, mentally disciplining our minds, emotionally, psycho-emotionally training our consciousness to be more aware of everything in terms of our actions and reactions, actions and responses. And that was the basis of forming a disciplined mind, a disciplined body, a disciplined emotional content. Part of our study was to go places that challenged our sense of fear. So like today when I said I was in this law firm, I felt the power. Now, the feeling I had when I was in this law firm was kind of the feeling that you have when you're at, the principal's office and you're 5 years old, at least when I was, and he was, saying, "Joey, you've been a bad boy and I'm going to paddle your butt." You can feel the presence of power and it's scary. Okay? Now, what is scary is what you should bow down to until you can be familiar with it enough and maybe be powerful enough that you feel on equal footing with that power. But rest assured, when the police officer pulls me over for speeding, I still feel that sense of power, and I'm the one who puts my head down. It's like the chimp, putting their hand to the alpha male. You put your head down in the presence of power. Now, very, very powerful people, very, very successful people understand power very, very clearly. So my wife and I have been watching this series on TV called Peaky Blinders, and just like, that other one, it'll come to my mind right now. But one of the things with some of these series that they're dealing with that they never dealt with when I was younger is this just pure, uncontrolled or unbounded power. And Peaky Blinders deals with power on multiple levels. And so one of the head of the Peaky Blinders clan, who had killed a lot of people in order to get ahead, who had damaged a lot of people, and who had protected his clan from damage, to gain power, is finally confronted with a power that has taken his son, kidnapped his son. Maybe his son is 3 years old at the time, and his wife has been killed, and his son is taken, and this dude knows a response of rage and ready to kill at all times. But in this particular situation, he was the one who put his head down. He knew that all he could do at that moment was tell the more powerful, "I'll do whatever you want to get my son back." So that's a lesson in power, and studying great men, studying strong men, is something that I started early on, in my late teenage years as I was leaving high school and entering university. And if you read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and you read Norman Vincent Peale, and you read Nightingale, I can't remember the first name, but these guys, they all do the same thing. They just tell story after story after story of successful high achievers and what they did to reach higher levels of power, which means higher levels of control, authority, and influence over others, as opposed to having more be under someone else's control, authority, or influence. That's why I've been attracted all my life to the entrepreneurial spirit. It's not for everybody. My wife wants to go and be a part of a large corporation, structured, that someone else takes all the liability and risks away from her, and she goes in and she does her job. And she wants to do her job excellently, and she wants to be a part of accomplishing really incredible things with a great organization, but she doesn't want the liability. She doesn't want the risk. She doesn't want the silverback responsibility. And I have always been the opposite. I have never been interested, and I've been educated that way, to want to be under someone else. Freedom is something that attracts me. When I was in Oregon and I was visiting my friend from college, she has her own business. She has run 1, 2, 3, 4 of her own businesses. And she has also worked for the government on her way from and towards the freedom and autonomy that she has. She doesn't make a lot of money right now. She should be making 2, 3, 4 times the amount of money for the work that she's putting in. But when I talked to her, when I spoke to her, one of the things that was abundantly clear was that she was doing it because of the freedom she had. She was the boss. She was in control. She was making decisions. She was involved with judges and attorneys and family members and had all these people underneath her and subcontractors, and that really excited her to always be using her brain in a stimulating way, but to also be the one who was in charge of everything. That's also power. So power, one of the things that I have been asking myself as I've watched my boys grow, and I'm talking specifically about boys in relationship to power, because feminism has empowered females over the last 5 decades while stripping power from males, and psychologically empowering females in ways that is beneficial for females to be empowered, but also in ways that is damaging to female psyche in other ways in which they're naturally disposed to be powerful, and making them feel guilty about some of those more natural inclinations, and stripping power away from males. Anything but power is what feminism wants from men. They want men to be powerless. They want men to be less in control, less authoritative, and less influence. And at the same time, they want women to be more in control, more authoritative, and have more influence over everybody, including men. So let's call a spade a spade. Let's call a spade a spade, because, we in this American culture have a great deal of guilt around power. And part of this program is to help us overcome that guilt and shame and look at what exactly is power, what is it used for, when is it beneficial, when is it not beneficial, how should it, what's good power, what's bad power. And the first lesson, this goes back to reading, I don't remember when it was, in the 80s, I think it was, Robert Bly and Michael Meade and some of these other men's movement gurus were learning some very interesting things that was already happening, in the 80s in terms of powerlessness in men. And one of those images that Bly wrote about that stuck in my mind was holding up the sword. Now, I've talked about this before, and I'm going to talk about it here because the image is so powerful. He said that a great vast majority of the men had a hard time with the concept of holding up a sword. Okay, so the idea of the sword in several decades has gone from protector, defender of what is right to shame, embarrassment, guilt, and complete capitulation before the sword. Which means, guys, you putting your head down and letting someone else potentially chop your head off. So holding up the sword is a powerful position. It's I made a decision. It's I have made a decision and I'm moving forward. And damn it, that is something that's really important if you want to achieve something. I've hit my maximum. So this is part 1 of Power and the Study of Great Men. Power and the Study of Great Men. So join us on part 2 for Power and the Study of Great Men. Namaste.